What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome to today's episode of Spawn Guides, the series where I cover all of the most common spawns and how they behave on every map in Call of Duty Ghosts for Domination. In today's episode, we're going to be covering another one of the Onslaught DLC maps, and that is Ignition. Let's get into it. Alright, so starting it off, as always, if you guys are new to the series and you haven't seen the prelude yet, I highly recommend you go and watch that first because it introduces a base of knowledge that you need to be able to understand exactly what I'm talking about throughout this series. I'll leave you guys an annotation link right here, as well as a link in the description. Okay, so the spawns on Ignition, as you can see, are a little bit scattered, and there are quite a few spawns for the size of this map. This is a smaller map, and there are a ton of spawns, especially around the A flag. The C flag doesn't have very many spawns, but we're going to get into that in a little bit. So let's start it off looking at the A flag. As you can see, there are two spawns within that back A building. These are within the same building, they're right next to each other, they're on the same level, so they pretty much behave in the exact same way. Just outside that building, there is another spawn. This one is a little bit more rare because it is kind of in the open. It's easy to get a line of sight on it from a long ways away, so this isn't an extremely common spawn. Right next to that, you have one that's in that corner there. This one behaves exactly as expected. It is anchored by teammates and blocked by enemies. And then the one just below that is kind of anchored more towards the C flag, so you'll spawn there if you hold A and C. That's a relatively common spawn. Or if you just hold A and your teammates are pushing towards C, it's really common that they'll anchor your spawn to that point as well. Now finally for the A flag, we have that one spawn that's right in the middle of the map, and this one is actually underground, as you can see in the little picture there. So this spawn didn't exist in the original scrapyard because this bottom area didn't exist at all. So just know that it is there. There is a spawn in there. It's not an extremely common spawn, but it will happen in certain situations. So just be aware that the spawn does exist. Moving on to the B flag, we have three spawns that are right around the B flag, and then we have one that's kind of towards the middle of the map. The top spawn that you can see there is just outside the building, and it's kind of protected by the wall to the right when you spawn there. So it's a relatively common spawn, especially if your enemies are pushing in towards the B flag and that's all you hold is the B flag. It's very common that you'll spawn there as long as it's safe. There's kind of an opposite to that on the other side of the building, just outside the building towards the C flag. There's a spawn just out there, and it behaves in the same way. So if the enemy team is pushing from the A side and you only hold B, it's very likely you'll spawn there as long as it's safe. And then finally, inside the B building, there's a spawn right next to the B flag, looking pretty much right at the B flag when you spawn. And that one behaves just as expected. If you have no enemies pushed up in towards the B flag and you hold the B flag, then it's very likely you're going to spawn there. Now the final B spawn, this one's a little bit odd. It's in the middle of the map, and it's in that sort of L-shaped building there. This one is very rare, so it's not very common, but once again, it's just nice to know that this spawn does exist and it can happen. For the C flag on this map, it's actually really surprising. For this size of a map, there are only 3 C spawns that are specifically attached to the C flag. They could spawn at a shared spawn or something like that, or if they're really anchored towards a different flag, it is possible. But otherwise, in most situations, you're going to spawn at one of these 3 spawns if you hold the C flag, so it's really easy to predict these spawns. The first one is right at the back of the map, right in the center. This is your starting spawn, and that one is extremely straightforward. The next one, just to the right of that, is in that bottom corner by the forklift. And then finally, we have a spawn that's pushed up kind of on the halfway point of the map between C and A. And this one is very common if you hold the C flag and your teammates have pushed up towards the A flag. Alright, so finally, we have the shared spawns. The bottom spawn that you can see here that's closer to the C flag, this is an extremely rare spawn, and I've only seen it happen in a few different situations. And it's something that you really don't even need to know because it is that rare. It almost never ever happens. So you basically just want to know that it is possible, but not likely at all. The top spawn, on the other hand, this one is very common. This one happens a lot if you hold the A flag, or if you only hold the B flag as well, you'll spawn here. Or if you hold A and B, it's also a very common spawn. And it's also kind of an emergency spawn for the C flag, so if the C spawns get blocked, oftentimes it'll flip to this spawn right here. This is kind of the spawn that the game will just default to if it doesn't have anywhere else to put you, as long as it's a safe place for you to spawn. So just keep that in mind, this is one of the most popular spawns in this map. Alright, so now that we've covered all of the spawn points on Ignition, let's test your guys' knowledge of spawn behavior using this map. So for the first test, the green team holds B and C, and the red team holds A. The green team is also pushing pretty aggressively towards the A flag. Where would a red guy spawn right now? I'll give you guys a few seconds to make a decision. If you guys guessed any one of these A spawns right here, then you're likely correct. Let's go over why that is. So first off, we know the game wants to spawn them at the A flag since that's the only flag the red team holds, but we have to find out which spawns are blocked off by a direct line of sight from a green player, and that is these two spawns right here. Next, we want to figure out where the spawn is going to be anchored to based on the positioning of the red players. So as you can see, we have a large group of red players right up here. They're pushed up kind of towards the middle of the map area, so they're likely anchoring the spawn towards them. But we do still have this one red player that's back in the A building, and he could potentially anchor a spawn back there as well. So this is why I say this could be any one of these A spawns. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm leaning more towards one of the spawns pushed up towards the C flag since that's where the biggest group of red players is, and they'd be anchoring that spawn towards them. But I wouldn't rule out those back A spawns as well, even though that one green player is pushed up right towards the A flag. And I've actually seen a clip of this and somebody complaining about the bad spawns. It was a very, very similar situation to this. The guy that was complaining was this green player that's pushed up towards the A flag, and he was upset because a guy spawned behind him at one of the A spawns. Well, that was kind of his fault. He pushed in way too far into the enemy's spawn, and obviously they're still going to want to spawn around him because that's how the game works. They don't want to flip the spawns out at every possible opportunity, and he ended up getting shot in the back. So in this situation right here, this green player is in trouble by being where he is. So moving on to the second test, we aren't going to change any of the positioning of these players. We're just going to say that that green player got killed. Where is that green player going to spawn? Once again, I'll give you guys a few seconds to make a decision. Did you guys pick one of these three B spawns right here? If so, you're most likely correct. Let's go over why that is. So first, let's have a look at where the green players are sort of anchoring the spawn towards. As you can see, we have a group of 3 green players over towards the B flag, and there are no red players anywhere near them, so it looks like they're probably going to be anchoring the spawn in that direction. Now we do have these 2 green players over on the other side of the map, but the only spawn that's really near them is clearly being blocked by a red player, so we're going to rule that out completely, and we are just going to focus on the 3 on the left side of the map. Now out of those potential spawns that are near those 3 green players, 2 of them are very clearly being blocked, so we're going to rule those out as well. This leaves us with those 3 remaining B spawns, so it's most likely going to happen on this side of the map. Okay, so now it's time for the final test, and for this one, we're going to ramp up the difficulty and take away your spawn points. We're also going to switch up the situation a little bit. So in this situation, the green team holds B and A, and the red team holds C. Now the red team is kind of pushed up towards the middle of the map, and the green team is kind of flanking in towards the C flag. Where would a red player spawn right now? I'll give you guys a few seconds to make your choice. Remember that shared spawn way up here? That is most likely where that red player will spawn. Let's look at why that is, and to do that we're going to bring back the spawn map to make things a little bit easier to see. So the red team holds C, so of course the game does want to spawn them at one of the C spawns. The only issue with that is every one of the potential C spawns is being blocked by a direct line of sight from a green player. At this point, the game is going to pick a safe spawn away from the C flag and preferably a shared spawn, which is this spawn right up here. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of Spawn Guides. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.